Hello and welcome to episode 117 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. A couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client, MTG Arena.
That's right. And this week we're talking about Explorer because it's been a while, and so we thought we should jump back into that, see if any of the new cards from Mom or Aftermath have penetrated it, and see how the meta is doing. But first, each week we both bring a beer. We drink Jeff's, then drink mine, rate them on a scale of bronze to mythic, and choose the best for last. So with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right, I am very sad to say that we are at the end of our tap takeover from Little Beasts. It's been a blast, but I thought we should go out with a bang.
Mhm.
So the beer that I have this week is from Little Beasts called Kraken, and it is a triple IPA sitting
Oh,
at a healthy 10% ABV.
yikes.
Save the best for last here, hopefully.
Yeah. This is one of the ones we've been waiting for a long time and have been kind of pushing it off for a few weeks, just because every night's like, if you are a longtime listener of the show, we used to bring, or more so, I used to bring a lot of 10% beers every week, back when we drank 3 beers an episode. And that was usually a mistake. So, um, I think we haven't had a 10% beer in a very long time. So this is I think going back to our roots a little bit as we
and
finish Little Beasts.
Zach, and Zach does all the editing, so he always got to listen to the rambling after 3 10% beers.
Yeah, yeah, or I try to cut it down so I don't sound as stupid. Um but anyway, let's see how this goes. We thought we should start off with it so it gets nice and silly early on. All right.
Right,
Jeff, let's crack it open.
cracking it.
Yes, cracking it. Alrighty. We have some magic news. So this weekend is Arena Championship number 3. It's May 27th and 28th, and the formats are standard and draft, which will be great. Hopefully, I'll be able to watch it. I have been working weekends now, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. More so, I tend to just forget it's happening altogether until like late Sunday, and I'm like, oh my god! So this announcement is also for me to remember.
Right. Yeah, I have a busy weekend, so I don't know how much I'll be able to watch, but hopefully I can catch some stuff. One thing I want to say is we did basically a breakdown of the standard metagame last week, so go check out episode 116 if you want to be prepared for what to expect. And by the time you're listening, the metagame breakdown is on the horizon or already out, and so you
Yeah,
can laugh at how wrong we were.
that's right. Though I mean, you know, we didn't actually say any numbers or anything. We didn't say this
Yeah,
one would be more than this one, which is the important stuff, especially because this tournament is a lot smaller than other ones that we have. These
right.
arena championships are much smaller. Um, with that being said, on Monday, uh, which is May 29th, we have a standard banned restricted announcement, which we talked all about last week. However, we're going to talk a little bit more about it today because we have some more news, kind of. There was a leak today, actually. Someone had said, so basically, there's this thing where they do banned and restricted announcements. There's like a web page that goes up a certain amount of days beforehand. This has been a way for the community to find out whether there was going to be a banned restricted announcement or not, and it usually all it says is like the day, and so we find out, oh, there's going to be one. It's going to be on this day, and it's a weird backdoor way people just look it up for some reason. I don't exactly know how they do it, but it's a thing that people on Reddit post, and they're like, oh, there's going to be a banned restricted announcement. And this user had said that they were able to scrape the website and figure out what the announcement's going to be, and they posted it all over Reddit, and it got everywhere, and everyone was talking about it. Um, However, since then, on Weekly MTG, Blake had confirmed, or Watsy had confirmed, that no, this leak is fake, and the banned cards on it are not. They didn't say not part of the banned and restricted announcement. They just said that actual article or those things are false. They're fake. Um,
Right.
but how much of it
Which
is
is
actually fake? You know, some of it's
right.
some of it's
It's
got to be
notable
real.
because this has happened in the past where bands got leaked. People used to, because they use like the same code
Hmm.
with the website. It's always like the date, band and restricted amount. Like it have the same name. You
Yeah.
can often like know where to go find it. Um, and they like upload it ahead of time so that it launches on time. But in the past, when this has been leaked, WotC has not come out and said that's fake. They just ignore it. And then
Hmm.
they release the ban on time and it's confirmed and confirms the leak, right? So the fact that they explicitly said, no, that's wrong is unique, I think, and probably means it's wrong.
Yeah. And the only reason we're really talking about this is because we went into a lot of it last week, so I don't want to get
Yeah,
hung up on it too much this week. But it will be fun to see whether, well, it will be fun to see how many cards on this list actually get banned, and if this is the correct also number of cards that will get banned, which is something that we're
yeah,
interested in because obviously this is one of the most exciting parts or times in the standard format is there's a tournament and then a bunch of stuff's going to get banned or something's going to get banned. Things are going to be shaken up, so it's quite exciting. So I'm just going to quickly run through the list so we can try to check it off. Maybe next week we'll see. We'll do a little like breakdown of which ones got banned and which ones were added or not or whatever. But we're looking at this list that is false says that wedding announcement will be banned, wandering emperor, invoke despair, fable of the mirror breaker, Rafine scheming seer, Atraxa grand unifier, reckoner bankbuster, and plaza of heroes.
yeah.
Which,
It, it's a
yeah.
mostly plausible list.
Hmm.
I think if I missed this whole thing, if I'd seen it, the thing that would have sent off alarm bells in my head that it seems fake is Atraxa. Atraxa is like a few months old and it's not that good. Like it's not really present in any top decks. I get that some people kind of don't like it or whatever, but some people love it. I think there's a very, very slim chance that Atraxa gets banned. So that would have been the sort of smoking gun for me that this list is probably not legit. The other one is like, if you're going to ban Atraxa because people don't like it, but you're going to leave Shieldred, I don't know if that's ever something they would do. Like
Yeah.
people hate Shieldred. So if
People
you're going to ban
hate.
something just because people don't like it and not because it's dominant or whatever, it would be Shieldred would be on the list.
Yeah. I agree. And much higher than Atraxa because it seems like people still love playing that card because it still feels like so a lot of those strategies feel kind of stupid in a way. Like you're reanimating it or doing kind of kooky things to get it onto the board. There are a bunch of ramp strategies that just play it, but anyway, I agree with that statement and that Atraxa may be too new. Like I don't think this is the type of card that they wanted to ban this early. So
Doesn't fit
um,
the bill, right? It's not dominant. It's not been around for too long. It just doesn't have any real reason to ban it,
yeah,
other than it makes like it does have the problem of if you're ever going to play Reanimator, this is always going to be your target as long
yeah,
as it's legal. But they even that's not necessarily true because of Vitali. So I don't see any real reason to ban this card.
yeah. But besides that, all the other ones have their say. It's basically like try to hose three different decks, which are the top ones, which is Rakdos mid range with Fable and Invoke, obviously, in Despair, of course. And then mono white mid range, get rid of the two best cards in that deck, and then Esper Legends as well. So yeah, we'll see if those decks which one of those decks kind of survives or becomes the new top dog or something else moves into its place. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to that in the
Yeah,
future.
me too. The other thing I wanted to say we don't that I just remembered about Magic news
Hmm.
is actually today, MTG Arena released on Steam,
Hmm.
which is pretty big news for some people. It probably means nothing for a lot of people. But for me, for example, because uh, I run Linux, it gives me a second option to run. Currently, I'm using something called Heroic Games Launcher, but basically it's the Epic Game Store. Um, but it's not perfect. If I Alt tab out of it and I tab back into Arena, I can't interact with Arena, which is super annoying. So if I ever
Uh,
accidentally Alt tab out of it, I have to restart the the client. So I am excited about it being on Steam because Steam is quite good for Linux gaming. They have something called Proton that tricks your machine into thinking it's on Windows. And so I'm excited to try MTG Arena on Steam. So other Linux gamers or maybe Mac gamers or just people who MTG Arena doesn't work natively out the box for them, having it on Steam is a pretty big deal.
yeah. I was also thinking about seeing if that was going to work for me, though. For the most part, uh, the Epic's game launcher seems to be working fine. So
Yeah,
I might stick with that. Besides some framing issues, but um, yeah, big news. Hopefully, moving in the right directions with that.
it's also just pretty big news because Steam is huge. They have a massive client base, so
Mhm.
customer base. I mean, so like just and it's on their front page, so it just gets a lot of eyes on Magic Arena.
Yeah, this is one of those things that just makes me surprised because I'm not a big I don't play a lot of other video games besides Magic, if you really call it a video game.
Right.
But it's obviously I know what Steam is, but I would have just assumed that it was on it already.
Yeah.
So seeing all the articles like, "Hey, we're coming to Steam," I'm like, that seems kind of strange that that didn't happen much earlier. But we'll have
No,
to.
Steam, I think I get the impression they're kind of jerks. Um
Oh, okay.
it if you don't do things their way, you don't get to go on Steam, that kind of thing. Like you
Mm.
have to play by their rules. So the arena team probably finally caved. Kind of like Uber, I guess, where they just kind of they screw everyone. I think you have to sign a deal that you're not gonna like if your game's for money, you're not gonna sell it cheaper anywhere else. And then they set the price. So basically they're getting sued for it, I think, but they're like ruining they're making competition basically impossible because in order to get on Steam, you have to sign a deal that you will
Says
never sell it cheaper
interesting. So
through
it's
any
like
other platform.
that is also how the Ontario government deals with liquor sales.
Yeah.
So
So
basically, you're
we
saying,
all know how unpleasant that system is.
yeah, interesting. Okay, um,
But Arena's free, so
that's true. I guess they get, yeah, that's true, and they get their money a different way, which Steam really
right.
doesn't get to be a part of. So then, yeah. Anyway, exciting stuff. But Jeff, uh, let's get into some Explorer talk because I can't remember the last time we really went in on Explorer and we're talking about it. It's something that I kind of jump into and jump out of, and usually tends to be like the third format of the three that I play in Arena, where I
Mhm.
really focus on draft and then standard, and then Explorer tends to be the last one.
Yeah, same. Although every time I jump back into Explorer, I just have so much fun. And I'm like,
It's
why
so
haven't I
true.
been playing this the whole time? You know?
Yeah, because it it is nice to have like a format that doesn't change drastically with like every single set release, and so that you can come back after a few months and be like, oh, it's pretty much the same, um, which just makes it fun, and you are able to just play um, kind of like your favorite deck and hope you just dodge your bad matchups, which is usually what you want from a non-rotating format, anyways.
Yeah, I think the top decks are clearly sort of spelled out, but they're not so oppressive. They're not so good that you can't play what you're playing. Like you can't just
Mhm.
it's not a format where you have to play a top deck in order to be competitive, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing just a ton of brewing and it hasn't felt like, you know, sometimes you get into these formats and you brew a deck and you're like, wow, it's going to be a long time before I ever get a win with
Hmm.
this thing. But that's not really the case in Explorer. The best decks are good, but have sort of notable weaknesses. They're all good at doing different things. Um,
Yeah.
I would say basically the best decks, there's like a mid-range deck, there's a ramp deck, and there's a like graveyard deck.
Hmm.
And uh, each of those is sort of uniquely, they're very good at what they do, but they're unique. Like it's easy. If you want to beat the ramp deck, you do the thing that beats ramp decks, like you
Hmm.
go under them. You want to beat the mid-range deck, you go over top of them. You want to beat the graveyard deck, well, just play any number of amazing graveyard hate that exists in
Yeah.
the format.
That you're already main decking, probably.
Right.
Um,
Like I honestly think that's part of why mid-range deck is even at the top, is just because it has so much incidental graveyard hate.
hmm.
Um, so that's kind of the broad level overview of what the top decks look like. Should we talk about what they actually are? I think there are no real surprises here, but
Yeah. Yeah. If you keep going, I'll let you run the ship for this.
okay. So the deck that I think probably holds the highest metagame percentage. This is just kind of based on poking my nose around the internet and also anecdotal on like the 15 or so matches that I've played recently. It's got to be Rakdos mid range. I
Hmm.
think the popularity from standard, the deck is very similar. And so a lot of people who built the deck in standard have ported it over to Explorer. You just need like more lands, basically, and then otherwise it's pretty much the same deck. Um, and you can play Crocs. It's like there's a few different ways you could build it.
Hmm.
But I think that's kind of what's going on here. So that's the de facto mid-range deck, and I don't actually think it's the best deck in the format, but I think it's probably the most popular, and it's good. It's out there. Um, oh, Bone Crusher. That's the other big addition you get from moving to Explorer out of
Yeah.
Standard is Bone Crusher Giant.
Plus,
Um,
like, obviously, Fatal Push kind of like replaces. It takes all the slots of like cut down, but then you also
yeah,
have Thoughtseize too.
right.
Um,
Yeah, of course, the deck gets Thoughtseize as well.
mhm.
Otherwise, it's kind of the deck you know and love from Standard. It's basically here at the top of the list on the back of Fable of the Mirror Breaker,
Yep.
as so many decks are. I think if you ban Fable, this deck just plummets into virtual non-existence. But with Fable, it's like Fable just really ties the entire thing together and raises the power level so much that um, I just think you definitely need it.
Yeah, it's
But
that that card, man. I it still amazes me what it can do. Where it just obviously I don't want to get into it, but it's just funny that it's just like no matter what format we talk about, it keeps like popping up all over the place. So
yeah, ridiculous card.
ridiculous
Um,
card.
Yeah, so personally, my experience, and I don't know
Mhm.
whether this is because I have the same feeling in standard. So I don't know if this is, and I've talked about it before, so I also won't go into too much detail here, but I don't know if this is the decks I play or like the level I'm playing at or what, but I'm never that impressed with this deck. Do I lose to it sometimes? Sure. Yeah. But I just feel like my lifetime win rate against this deck has got to be really high because I just that feeling when you sit across from a deck and you're like, oh, not this. Like as soon as they play their land or they play
Yeah.
something, I never get. I have the opposite of that feeling with this. I'm like, oh, it's red black mid range. Like I have a shot here. And so
Hmm.
the
That's
fact that
true.
that's internalized for me means that my win rate must be pretty good against this deck. Um, it could just be the type of decks that I play. Like, I've talked at length about how I beat Shieldred when Shieldred's been on the battlefield 5+ turns all the time.
Hmm.
So some decks, I guess, just get completely like hosed or just like LOL stuffed by Shieldred,
Hmm.
but nothing I play does. So it might be stuff like that. But for the most part, it's just like I don't get it. I don't get why this is dominating every single format because I'm never scared of it. The other theory is like, you know, I'm playing the 5 match leagues on Arena, or if I'm in ranked, like because I usually play the leagues, I'm not that high ranked. So maybe I'm just not playing against the strongest pilots. And if I were to run into Nathan Stoyer, I would feel a little differently about the power level of this deck.
Yeah.
But like mid range is deceptively hard to play. I think everybody thinks they are good at playing mid range decks, and few people actually are. Um, and so, because you win a lot of free games just on the power level of your cards, and that can convince you that you're playing really well. Um, but the true masters like Nathan, or if you ever watch Reed Duke play any black based mid range deck ever, I think you'll be amazed at the number of different lines that he takes than you would have, and how it like squeaks out narrow victories for him.
Yeah. It's like it's it's like the pattern that it kind of sets up for itself in this deck is very powerful. And like you were saying, being a more inexperienced player or someone who is just playing Magic feels very smart and strong by playing the lines that you're used to playing, because they just your card quality is just good. And so
Right.
it just feels like, yeah, this deck is busted, until you get to the level where people are trying to break that pattern, and so you don't actually know what to do, because you're always in the situation where, like, well, this is turn 2, I should play this card because that's what I was doing on turn 2,
Right.
and so on and so forth. And when you get to
Even
like,
like playing your lands is not trivial in this
yeah,
deck.
super important, especially
Yeah.
with, like, now that we're an explorer, you have the AFR man lands, which like kind of screw things up and can make things kind of awkward. So I definitely think that you're 100% right with that, and that I agree that when I have run into this deck in Explorer, I think I have the same situation where I usually not so much like breathe a sigh of relief, but like I know this deck fairly well, and
Mhm.
so um, I'm interested to see what my opponent is going to do with it. And whenever they turn 3, like, sack their Blood Tithe Harvester to kill one of my creatures, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. This is gonna go well for me. Um,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
I love that. When
yeah,
I literally had that earlier today where I was like, should I kill their Blood Tithe Harvester or just play this creature that I don't care about and rely on them to kill their own Blood Tithe Harvester?
yeah,
And that's exactly what happened. They
yeah,
sacked it to kill my thing because they love playing Fable on an empty board. And I was like, oh, perfect. Now I don't have to use my removal spell on your stupid Blood Tithe Harvester, and I can kill your token, so you don't get
yeah.
a like.
The
This all just
treasure.
lined up how I was hoping.
Exactly.
Um,
And so you're knowing you're playing their lines, which they think are the only way you can play, and is smart.
right.
Um, so
Now,
I
sometimes you'll thought seize into Blood Tithe Harvester into, Fable of the Mirror Breaker into Shieldred, and like you don't have to be Nathan Stoyer to win that game.
yeah, that's strong.
But it's the games where you have slightly awkward mana, or you have decisions about whether to play your Sokens and Takanumas,
Hmm.
or hold them to use them later, that type of stuff. Like there's a lot of sort of sneaky decision making in this deck because it seems like you just play the most powerful thing every turn, and
Hmm.
that's correct 80% of the time, but it's the other 20% that where the pros kind of make their money.
Yeah. And don't make this mistake that I do all the time, which is where I either look at my hand and be like, okay, this is all spelled out, this is perfect, and then play the normal pattern and then lose and be like, well, I just got unlucky, that's not fair.
Right,
Or the other mistake I play where it's like, oh, this matchup is terrible, I always do this, and then I just lose because, like, that's just how the matchup pans out.
right,
If you ever feeling like you're in that situation, like, try to figure out how can I break up what my opponent's doing, because I
right.
you don't have to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing that always got me that I always think about with this was when Arna won the
Hmm.
the Pro Tour with Rogues, and he was playing against, I think it was Gruul, but he basically just didn't cast any of his creatures for the first few turns because he didn't want to make it give his opponents like convenient uh, time to use stomp. And he knew his opponent almost certainly had stomp. And so he just did not play his Thieves Guild Enforcers until it was awkward for his opponent to cast Stomp on the
Hmm.
next turn. And that's just a great example of what you're talking about, where 99% of arena players just, oh, I have a one drop. It's the only thing I can do. I always end step my Thieves Guild Enforcer on turn one or whatever. And he was just holding it until his opponent played mana for something else, and they'd have to untap, and they'd have like 4 mana, and they could only do Stomp. They couldn't do two things. And like,
Yeah,
just made it really uncomfortable for them
yeah,
because
because
he knew how they wanted to curve out.
yeah, and he's used that multiple times because he used that against Gregor Kowalski playing Ultimatum, which
Mm-hmm.
all of his cards, like all the kill spells, are like Binding of the Old Gods and stuff like that, where it's like it costs four
Right,
mana, and you want all the chapters, and you don't want to play it with no target for the first chapter, and being like,
right,
well, I'm gonna wait until we're at 5 mana, and I can play three things at once, and you can only play one thing at a time.
right.
Um,
Because your removal's clunky.
yeah,
If I, map it out one at a time for you, then it works great for you.
perfectly.
But if
Yeah.
I stack it all up and unload it, then you're gonna have trouble. Yeah. So that's a really good point. Instead of just complaining that you lost and then doing the same exact thing every time, try to take note that, oh, I'm doing the thing, Thoughtseize, Harvester, Fable, but I keep losing to this matchup. And then next time you're in that matchup, try to remember that. Be like, is there something different I can do? The biggest one, by the way, in mid-range decks, that I think the number one biggest mistake from people who don't have a ton of experience as mid-range decks is there are a lot of matchups. I would actually say most matchups where you don't want to Thoughtseize on turn one
Yeah.
because you need to think about when your opponent's going to play their big haymaker. So, like in the mirror match, for example, you really want to get them when they're about to go to 3 mana and they want to cast Fable, because what happens is you Thoughtseize them, they don't have Fable, and 3 turns later they play Fable right on cue, right? And so, and then you just the natural reaction is, oh, I'm so unlucky. Like, okay, but you actually could have done something about this. Like, you
Hmm.
didn't have to play Thoughtseize on turn one just because it's efficient. Sometimes you want to be efficient, but sometimes you have to be like, listen, I don't have a Fable of my own, or I don't have my turn three play. If they if that happens and they Fable on turn three, I'm probably too far behind to catch up. So I'm gonna make sure I give myself the best chance of nabbing the Fable, and I'll wait 2 turns to cast this.
Hmm.
Um, that's just some Thoughtseize tips for people who haven't played a lot of Thoughtseize in the past. It's so tempting to play it on turn one, but it's often wrong.
Yeah. And especially with some of these like razor thin matches where it's like your decision is really, do I shock into Thoughtseize on turn one so that I can
Right.
do that? And you know, I don't think it's true most of the time. You should. It really depends on
Yeah.
the matchup. So
-16 is a big deal. So
yes, just like right off the bat. So those are some of the decisions, and like, and this is also, the more I've been playing Magic, the more interesting the land drops have become.
oh
So
yeah.
that ends up being something that I really care about and thinks is super exciting, um, which always seemed horribly boring to me in the past. But let's go on to another deck. You've been talking about the graveyard deck, which
Mhm.
obviously is one that has been around for a while, and another fun card that came from Kamigawa that like really changed, it really just created an entire archetype with
Yeah.
Greasefang.
Yeah.
So uh, this deck is one that I think has been super fun, but in the past, you specifically have also just said that you haven't been really impressed with it, and it's
Yeah.
not ever something you think that you're never really worried about playing against it, and you're not even really worried that much about hate against it. It just seems like a deck that you're not uh not worried about, and it's just not really on your radar. So I want to know now, how are you feeling about it currently? Do you still feel the same way?
Yeah. So I still feel the same way. Again, I think this might be a little biased by the type of stuff that I play. Like,
Hmm.
I love Cling to Dust. I am often main decking to dust.
Hmm.
And if I'm black and it's the right type of deck for it, there's probably four in my main deck plus my sideboard, like 2 to 3 being main deck. That does go a long way in this matchup
Yeah.
because this deck, their cards are on the table. Like they need to mill Greasefang and then reanimate it. Otherwise, their deck doesn't actually do that much of anything. Like they try to make it give it some staying power with like Asika's Chariot and stuff. But come on, if you're losing to an Asika's Chariot and Explorer, if you're losing to like Rafine's Informant into Asika's Chariot and Explorer, like, what were you doing?
Hmm.
So they really have to be comboing you. And I just like basically I play instant speed removal, I play Cling to Dust, I play all of these things that really just disrupt this combo. Um, so I think that's why I'm not super concerned about it. If you look at stuff like Rakdos midrange, their graveyard interaction is sorcery speed, which isn't good enough. Like they play Graveyard Trespasser, they play Hive of the Eye Tyrant. They have a lot of built-in graveyard hate, but at sorcery speed, it's not going to nab this because a good Greasefang player won't put the Greasefang in the yard and then next turn reanimate. It's all going to happen at once.
Hmm.
So um, I think that's the advantage I get is just I love Cling to Dust. So
That
that
you
happens
literally
to like
love Cling to
shore up
Dust.
this matchup. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so it's interesting because there's a deck we're going to talk about later on in the show, and this is one of the reasons why I felt like it hasn't been able to stand up in the past. So um, that's why I really wanted to hear kind of your thoughts about if it's strong enough
Oh
now.
yeah. That's
Um,
super interesting matchup. So
yeah, um, but I do think that this deck I like that it's strong, and I like that it still is an interesting matchup because even though you were saying like getting beat up by an Asika's Chariot like shouldn't really happen, it usually tends to be the thing that you lose to Asika's Chariot because you use all of your cards making sure that they can't combo, and then you end up
yeah,
running out of answers for something just normal, just like the regular 4 drop tends to be the case.
I was
Um,
thinking game one when I said that. I think
gotcha.
their sideboard plan and like their mid range strategy is very real game two because people
Hmm.
tend to over sideboard into graveyard hate. And
Yeah.
that's when you just lose to Shieldred or you just
Hmm.
lose to a Seeker's Chariot. Game one, generally, I'm hoping that you have some sort of removal spell that can be pointed at the Chariot or
Yeah.
um, like it's their only real win condition other than Greasefang combo. So hopefully you can deal with a deck that has kind of two threats,
Yeah.
assuming that you already have Graveyard Hate, like I was talking about.
Main
Like
decked.
right, because I have the uh, Cling to Dust, I only have to worry about beating at the Seekers Cherry, and
Hmm.
that's should be trivial.
Yeah. This deck did get a couple upgrades with Shadows of Radiant Shroud Remastered with Vessel of Nascency and Traverse the Ulvenwald.
Yeah.
Ulvenwald.
So I
Ulvenwald?
love. I say
Ul-
Ulvenwald. I don't know.
Ulvenwald. Um,
Um, I love Traverse the Ulvenwald.
mhm.
And I also have played a healthy amount of Vessel of Nascency in my day.
Yeah.
But I like one of the things I really like about this Greasefang deck is very few of these cards are quote unquote good cards. Okay, you have Thoughtseize in here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
That's
have
true.
Asika's Chariot. Everything else is like on its own kind of trash. Like we're playing
It's
Rafine's Informant in an actual deck, really. Like it's all just like draft chaff and stuff, and I think that's awesome.
yeah. That Witherbloom command
Yeah,
was
with a blue command.
I love that of the commands from Strixhaven, this is the one that is playable in Explorer, while none of
Right.
the other ones have made it. And this was
Nobody
like
would have picked that.
it was widely regarded as like the worst one. The only thing
I
that
think
was
I liked it, but I think I was the only one that liked it.
I liked it because it was one of the cheapest ones, and so I
Right.
was like,
Awesome. So the arena regulars saw its potential, but
yeah. But everyone's like sorcery speed, that's horrible. Um,
yeah.
but anyway, this is a deck that I continue to want to build in paper for Pioneer because it's like fairly cheap. And I
Yeah,
always look at it being like, should I play that? It does look
right.
fun. And it is a super fun deck. But the
And I just love that
games,
Parhelion too, like to keep on our
oh,
comments of dad cards, like come on. Parhelion 2 is in this deck. Amazing.
yeah, Parhelion 2 is such
Four
a,
copies.
yeah, because it's like, besides this deck, it's such a piece of shit. Like, it's
It's so bad.
so bad. That's why it's so nice that, like, it actually is useful and good. Like,
Yeah.
there's ever a card that was like, just the fact that this combo exists just makes me happy. And I want this deck to be around for a very long time just because of that.
Yeah, this like underscores our point earlier about the top decks in this format are not that bad in the sense like they're not just super dominant and boring.
Hmm.
This is like, come on, if this is the best deck in your format, that's a great format.
Yeah.
Look at the
uh
trash deck is playing.
yeah, it's true. Scrap work mutt. um I love, like, that was one of the cards that got added to one of the teams at Pro Tour Phyrexia added that, the scrapbook mutt, and I think the vessel, and it was
Is it
their,
just like Rafine's in format number 5 kind of?
basically. And I think they were playing Mana Confluence or something to be able to bring it back if you wanted, um, something like that, or maybe some off-color lands just to have red. But
Right.
who knows if they need to, whatever, unearth it, or uh, whatever it's called to bring it back. But anyway, uh, happy to see that deck around. But before our beer break, we should talk about the other deck you had mentioned, which is our
Yeah.
ramp deck. So, Jeff, do you want to lead us in with that?
Yeah. So I think again, no surprises here. But this is mono green devotion. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's trying to make use of Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, which is an incredibly powerful card, and it uses the green shell to do that because it gets access to 8 uh, Llanowar elves, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, and just a lot of like powerful multi-pip cards. And it does the whole Karn, the Great Creator thing, and plays just bomb artifacts in its wishboard. Um, yeah, just kind of if you this deck has sort of been around in many different formats for a while. This is the Explorer version. It's fairly strong because it is a ramp deck that can also beat down. Like if you sideboard too heavily against, your deck's full of disdainful strokes, suddenly you just lose to like Old Growth Troll and the new Pelucranos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it has that kind of all great decks have that like attacking on multiple fronts kind of angle to it. This one has a pretty good plan B of we'll just beat you down with undercosted like beaters. Like Llanowar Elves into Pelucranos into like a Cavalier of Thorns shortly after. It's like not a bad not a bad curve out. So um yeah, so it basically has those two things. Again, like I think it's just totally fair though. I never play against mono green and just go, oh man, this is unbeatable. Like
Yeah.
sometimes they have those draws, but every deck does. Every deck has the nut draw that it will look stupid when it happens.
Yeah.
But this deck also just has games where it kept a one lander with an elf. You
Mm-hmm.
kill the elf and they don't draw the land, and you're like, free win.
Yeah, so this is, as there was a period of time where I was playing this as my main deck, um, because I was like, you know what, I want to get into this, and it's really exciting, but you will find those. I was very cognizant of that idea that, like, your turn one plays, your Llanowar elves are not lands, and
Yeah,
don't consider them that. Don't keep a one lander with a Llanowar elf and like a Wolf Willowhaven. Wolf Willowhaven, holy shit, Kraken is like
yeah,
smacking me. But just because you're just like, you're begging to get mana screwed, like you're begging for it, especially
yeah.
in a
But the deck,
I'm just like, especially in a format that has like Thoughtseize and
Right.
fatal push and things like that. Just like don't, just don't.
But yeah, like when red black's one of the best decks.
Yeah.
I have to imagine this thing beats red black generally though. But for example, the deck list we're looking at here on playingmtg.com, it runs 22 lands. Like that's not a lot of lands. That's like an aggro deck number of lands.
Hmm.
So it really is relying on on being able to get an early elf down or an early wolf Willowhaven. And I played against this deck earlier this week where they went turn one elf, turn two, tap land, tap elf, wolf Willowhaven my land. I countered it with make disappear or whatever. And then they didn't play another land, so I untapped and I fatal pushed the crap out of that elf. And
Hmm.
4 turns later, I have a fully developed board, and they
And
have
they're
like
screwed.
another elf, and then eventually they found a second one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think maybe played Kiora that I didn't even care about at that point. So that happens to this deck, which I think is a good thing.
Hmm.
That's what you don't want is a deck like this just be ultra consistent and always be kind of doing its explosive thing. It should have that in its wheelhouse, but it should also have this other kind of just fail scenario in its wheelhouse. And then most of the time it just kind of plays out like a normal deck.
Yeah. This specific list we're looking at on Playing MTG, which by the way is a great website. You should go check it out if you're looking for decks or tier guides. They do weekly tier guides for all the important formats. And anyway, wonderful place. But I am really surprised that like I don't know if this is actually a trend that's happening, but like are people not playing Nissa anymore in this deck? Who shakes the world?
I haven't
Because
seen Nissa in a long time, actually.
that's really interesting because that was usually one of the pieces that helped you go off on your turn was making sure you had Nykthos and Nissa to like
Yeah, I
double
mean,
up
that's
on a bunch
just,
of stuff.
if you can't go off when you have those in play, like, I don't know what kind of board you have.
Yeah. Um so maybe it just felt redundant because every once in a while it might feel that way or you don't want to untap your Nykthos and turn it no, you untap force. Anyway, doesn't matter, but like this deck when you say explosive, like you should never concede if you have a decent amount of lands, just like keep playing the game because there have been games where I have been like there is no way I can lose or win this game. Like I'm so fucked. And just being like, you know what, it's game one. They're gonna win, but I'm gonna see how long it takes them so they lose a bunch of time on their
Right.
clock and then end up comboing off on a turn and like obliterating them. I'm being like,
Yeah.
wow, there's like no way I could have lost that game. Um, this is if you want a deck that does that, this deck does that. So
Yeah.
uh, it's very fun and very good.
Yeah. This is a good deck. I don't have an issue with it, although contrary to what I've been talking about with the other two decks, this deck tends to have a favorable matchup against the type of stuff that I play. So
Hmm.
um, it is one of the ones where I am groaning a little bit when I see it, even though I actually enjoy playing against it. I just know like it's gonna be an uphill battle with my Anvil deck to beat this thing.
Yeah, it's also interesting to see because so there are two things we've mentioned this before in the show, but I always think it's worth mentioning because who knows what who's listened to what episodes. But number one, if you don't like sideboarding or don't feel confident, you should play this deck because you don't have to sideboard ever. It just has a wish board, so don't worry. And number two, it's really interesting watching your opponent go pick which card they think is the best thing that they need right now from their wish board and being like, really? Is that the
Yeah,
card you need right now? Like you picked a hate piece for something that's not going to solve anything that I'm doing. I don't know if you know what that does. Um,
right.
so
Wishboarding kind of moves your sideboarding decisions to
to main, yeah, to
in the
game
moment.
one, to game one is
Yeah.
what it does.
But it lets you see what your opponent is like. It literally has on the battlefield before
that's
you go get your
that's true.
sideboard card. Yeah,
Um,
the number of times my opponent goes and gets Tormod's Crypt to
mhm,
like try to exile to break up my cat oven combo. And I'm like, I don't know if my opponent realizes that I can't activate the oven.
mhm.
Like I'm already cooked here, man. That Karn is enough to beat me.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's like go get like your haymakers to win the game. Like you don't need
yeah,
to.
like I just need to kill that Karn. I cannot play the game with that Karn on the battlefield. So go get something that stops me from doing that.
Mhm. Which is literally like any of your huge spells to like exile
I
stuff.
I've actually had someone pithing needle my oven, like Karn, go get pithing needle oven. I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
and like they'll never know because I can't tell them. That's the way arena works. I
Yeah.
can't be if I was in person, I'd be after the match. I'd be like, just so you know, like Karn prevents me from activating my oven. So
Hmm.
unless you were really worried about me killing Karn and wanted the oven still deactivated, you probably should have gotten something else.
Yeah. There's also a really interesting point. It's not interesting, but like read all the cards that you're getting because Pithing Needle also in the mat like the mirror match doesn't do anything against Nykthos because
Mm-hmm.
it only turns off activated abilities that aren't mana abilities, and obviously Nykthos is a mana ability. So I've had people do that to me where I'm like, go ahead, like it doesn't do anything. So like just get something else. Like
Yeah. Also, fun tip: don't be me, where I had two fabled passages in play, and my opponent went and got Pithing Needle, and I was like, okay, and can't target,
oh
can't do lands. That's fine, because I was like, I have a Mayhem Devil in hand. I'm gonna wait to sack these, and that game did not go well.
that sounds horrible but hilarious. I'm very happy that you got to learn that lesson the hard way.
The thing is, I knew I played modern with fetch lines. I knew that, but I just
Yeah,
like it didn't. That lesson didn't translate to Fabled Passage in Explorer kind of
yeah,
thing. You know, it's like I know it with fetch lines. Fetch lines are like Pithing Needle. I better sack all my fetches because
yeah.
I don't want to give them like a
A
stone
free
rain. You know,
stone rain.
you know,
You know what? I think like wizards should just bring back lands that don't tap for mana. I really want that to come back. It never will,
yeah.
but I'd love it. Um, anyway, Jeff, how you doing on your Kraken? How's it going?
Getting there.
Getting there. Okay. Um, because do you want to talk about one more deck before we go to a beer break, or should we just go right now? Because I've had more than you, and I think everyone can tell by the way I'm talking right
um, yeah, I think that is a good way to like underscore the top end of the format. If you go to playingmtg.com, the website we discussed earlier, it's a great
now.
website. It has like S tier, A tier, it has a whole tier list. It has Rakdos Sacrifice listed in A tier.
Yeah, I was surprised by this. Um, well, but you tell me. You're the expert. Tell me.
So I actually haven't played. If you click, you'll find that it's not the Anvil version. It's the like
Hmm.
old school. Um, God, what's the baby stealing card?
Claim the
Um,
firstborn.
they claim the firstborn.
Baby stealing
Uh,
card.
baby thief.
Yeah.
Uh, it's that version. I haven't played against that deck a single time.
No.
I'm excited to like try it if their data suggests it's actually pretty good. Um, but I haven't seen it at all. I've also not seen a ton of Greasefang,
Hmm.
and so and there are a few decks that we'll probably talk about after the break that aren't even on this list that I've been seeing more and more of. So I think generally these online tier lists, because of the way the meta is so explosive, they can be a bit slow to adapt. Um, Playing MTG does a good job of moving things up and down the rankings as they get more popular, their win rate changes. But it may be a bit late to like remove decks entirely or add new decks that are showing up, or just update the lists if you click on it. Um, so that's just my comment. I think generally those top three that we discussed seem pretty faithful based on my experience. But I'm seeing less Grease Fang these days. I'm seeing just a ton of Rakdos and like a healthy amount of green. Um,
Yeah. I agree with that. Also, it's really important to note that playing MTG, they update their tier list for Explorer, I believe, on Thursdays.
oh, okay,
So
so We're looking at
Each,
it like a few days
uh,
before the update.
yes, right before the update. So
Right.
each of the different formats update on different days, I believe. Maybe not all of them, but I think Pioneer might be Wednesdays or all that kind of stuff. Um, but it was interesting that Rakdos sacrifice. It looked like it had skyrocketed from kind
Mhm.
of nothing to something, and it didn't have any new cards. It wasn't really like the list that they're kind of touting doesn't specifically have the new Obnixilis, which was my initial reaction was, oh, you're playing Cat
Yeah,
Oven
I
and
assumed it
Mayhem
was kind
Devil.
of.
Obviously, you're playing um, the your big boy now, your big card draw engine. Um, so and not
Yeah.
even playing uh, anything that would show why you wouldn't want to do that. So anyway, um, very
Yeah, I wonder if their
surprised by
data
that.
moves the list up, like, oh, more people are playing this list and winning with it, but they didn't update the actual list from the one they have on file. So
That's
like that could happen, right? Where
that's very true.
um,
Yeah.
I think they'll update the list if one of the writers writes an article about it or plays the deck and wants to go in and update it themselves. But generally, they're just like labeling decks as Rakdos Sacrifice and looking at all the data, how many people are playing it, how many people are winning with it, and sort of deciding on the tier list that way. So
Yeah.
I
Because
assume that
this,
you're right that there are some changes, probably like Opnix list, that have moved this deck up in the rankings, and
mhm,
their algorithm doesn't like pick that out
yeah.
necessarily. It just looks for raw win rate.
Yeah, exactly. Because this deck list hasn't been updated since April 27th. So anyway, that's also an important thing to look at when you're looking at all these deck lists is the timestamp for when they have actually uploaded this specific deck.
Yeah,
Um, but
still a super awesome resource though.
yeah, wonderful. Really love them. But yeah, Jeff, do you want to go to a beer break, grab some more beer, and then talk about some of our favorite decks in
Let's
Explorer?
do it.
Okay, cheers. Let's finish this Kraken. This beer break is brought to you by our patrons over on Patreon.
That's right. You're already supporting the show just by being a listener. But if you want to support the show even more, Patreon is the best way to do that. Plus, you get to vote on your favorite co-host by either buying me a beer,
Or buying me a beer. So go to patreon.com/arena regulars to vote on your favorite host.
or if you'd rather send us sweet deck lists instead, you can do that too. The best way to do that is on our Discord channel. The link should be in the show notes.
It should be. I put them there myself. And Jeff, let's go to our last Little Beasts beer. Ah, it's so sad. There will be more in the future, I'm sure, but I'm just so happy we were able to do this little tap takeover. And speaking of little, we have a beer for you this evening. The last one is Little Wizard. We got a picture of the tiny little wizard by this giant cat, which now I'm realizing is a normal sized cat and a just a little wizard. And
It's a
he's
beast, so it should be little too.
it's true. It's true. So it's actually the tiniest little wizard. Um,
Yeah.
and he's like illuminating this piece of yarn or this ball of yarn for this tiny beast black cat. Anyway, what really matters is that it's a margarita goza. So definitely something Jeff's been excited to try. And it's 5.5%, so it'll pair nicely with our 10% Kraken.
Yeah.
Saving the best for last year, Jeff.
Yeah. So for those at home who may or may not know what a goza is, I think of it as the salt and vinegar chips of the beer world. It is literally like salty acidic beer. That's what a goza is.
Yeah,
So I am intrigued by the idea of a margarita goza because margaritas are also like lime and salt, and gozas are acid and salt. So it makes sense. I haven't really had a goza that I've liked before, so um, if anyone can do it, it's Little
it's
Beasts.
a little beast. So let's crack this puppy open.
For the record, I hate salt and vinegar chips.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. What? Um,
Yeah,
that
they're
is
gross.
so okay. So no. Okay, we gotta stop this right now because um,
Tried to sneak that one in there. So,
while we were on the beer break, me and Jeff talked extensively about his dill pickles that he was making or he makes in
mhm.
general. So I'm surprised that you don't just love salty vinegar things if you like pickles, because that tends to be like people that like pickles like salt and vinegar chips as well as salt and vinegary things.
No.
Explain
Um,
yourself.
Salt and vinegar chips are in general way too vinegary. They just like make you pucker. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, it differs by brand. How much is how like you know sour they are or whatever. Um, but generally, I love the idea of it's just seasoned because it's like an acid and a salt. That's how we
Hmm.
season food, and I think that's a cool idea. But the people who make them have taken it to the extreme where they just friggin' absolutely douse them in vinegar and salt. And I think it would be way better if it was just a hint of each.
Mm, interesting. Um, I definitely think there are ones that are, of course, better than other ones, but like that's the first chip flavor I will go for if I'm looking at
Yeah.
chips. Um,
Same with
it's
Julia, my wife, and she actually likes the ones that are
the
more
most,
vinegary.
yeah, and I would probably agree with that. That I want to be super intense. So yeah, sorry, you're at number tier, pal. Catherine also prefers salt and vinegar and wants really intense ones. So
I literally eat original chips, so
wow.
I
Oh, you're
think I'm
so
just
cool. Wow, you liked them
yeah,
before they were cool.
that's right.
Oh, sorry,
I
you eat
am very likely
flavors?
in the minority.
Yeah.
I like the chips that taste like a friggin' potato.
Hmm. Lame. Ooh, interesting. I'm excited to hear what you think about this one because I I like your face. Okay, all right. Okay. We'll see how it goes. Jeff also likes to try to trick me with his faces as we go through the show, and try to throw me off at the end. So who knows? Anyway, uh, that's enough beer talk. Let's get back into Explorer and talk about some of our favorite decks, or ones that we hope were better, or ones that have changed at all, anything like that. But Jeff, as always, I'm interested to hear what you have to say because you tend to be brewing interesting things or doing fun stuff. So,
Yes.
what's going
So
on?
one thing I wanted to just like touch on is a few other decks that you might see that are maybe not top of the meta, but are solidly like mid meta.
Hmm.
We won't go through the decks in as much detail, but I've been running into a healthy amount of creativity stuff.
Yeah.
I think, like with Atraxa coming out as a new target, that's probably better than the Titan of Industry. It's kind of breathed some new life into these decks, and more people are trying it. I haven't been super impressed by it. I think like the issue with the deck wasn't the power level of the finisher. It was just that creativity's um, super easy to break up.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, and I'm saying creativity, but really, I've been seeing transmogrify almost.
Oh.
It's all been transmogrify. Um, so it's like the usual kind of tokens thing. You transmogrify and you hit your Atraxa. I just played against that earlier today, and in both games they did their thing, and I
Hmm.
still won because I just killed the Atraxa and move on with my life.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not sold on it, but the fact that there are new targets to explore has breathed a little life into these. The other thing that you'll see is uh, like enigmatic incarnation.
Hmm.
It's like a Yorion deck, and it's quite powerful. It's like a slow, kind of dirtily powerful thing in the right matchups. That's good, but lots of decks can go under it, and it kind of suffers from the I have a card that my deck is built around, and I'm playing Yorion pile. So like Yorion tends to not want one card that your deck revolves around because you're going up to 80 cards. Um, but the deck can win, so pretty decent. And then I tend to run into a crap load of various, I'm just going to call them, let's say, mediocre tribal. And
Hmm.
so you have a bunch of different tribal decks kind of floating around, but none of them is, they're all good and none of them are amazing. So you'll see angels, you'll see humans. Um, on playing MTG, they list elves and spirits, but I haven't actually played against any of that on Arena, but I believe them that they're there. Um, I think angels is probably the most common that I've seen.
Hmm.
But they're tribal creature decks, so they have the same weaknesses that tribal creature decks always do.
Yeah. I am surprised. I definitely was hoping that like mono white humans or Celestia humans was going to be playing the new Copper Coat Vanguard, which is
Mm-hmm.
the human lord. It's a 2 mana 2/2, so it's a bear, but each other human you control gets +1/+0 and has Ward 1. Seemed like something I was interested in a meta that's trying to one for one you for a lot of your creatures on board. Seemed like something that would probably be some sort of slam dunk, at least to me. But I haven't seen it in any of these lists. It seemed like a card that was gonna do work, but um, ended up not getting there. Though I still think it's worth looking into. But that's also from a player who plays spirits and likes the those decks. So um, this could be a reason why just explore in a lot of ways. Playing like the low to the ground creature decks is something that I tend to really enjoy, and the fact that not only Abs and Greasefang, but also like Gruul Vehicles has been a deck that people have been playing. At the Skyship Sovereign, so boat, tends to be a really good card against low to the ground creature decks because it kills everything you have and uh, keeps on doing it randomly, which is not even like the card that's the best card in their deck. Um, it's
I got
just
my ass kicked by Goat recently because I was like, it'd be a good idea to replace my geez, I don't even remember the name of the removal spell, but it kills something with no counters on it. That's what I used to be playing.
mm.
And I decided, let's just replace it with Go for the Throat. And then I'm sitting there getting my ass kicked by this stupid boat with a Go for the Throat in my hand. And I'm like, literally the first game that I made that swap
Mm.
immediately happens.
Like nope.
Um, so actually, Go for the Throat may not be the best in this format because a lot of decks, like Green Devotion plays the boat, they can get it. Cool vehicles
That's
plays
true.
it. Um,
Greasefang plays it, so
Bruce Bang plays it. So yeah. Go for the Throat's actually probably not the best in a deck in a format with so many vehicles.
mm.
Um, that's hey, I learned it the hard way, so you don't have to.
That's true. That's very true. And as far as is it creativity goes, I think people it's a very it's a deck people really want to play in Explorer, but because we're missing the pieces from Pioneer, it just doesn't get there.
Right?
Um,
Like in Pioneer, it wins if you get the combo off.
on the
In
turn, you
this,
get
it,
it.
it like refills your hand, kind of thing.
Yeah, or like deals some damage, but like
Yeah.
um, though like I am surprised that this list isn't playing because like there is the you can play creativity with was the Locust God and Sage of the Falls or something, which
Oh
makes
yeah,
the hasty ones. So I'm surprised that people are shifting
that would
away
be
from
better because that's closer to the
the
Pioneer
Pioneer
version.
one. So that's why I'm surprised seeing these lists are playing Atraxa at all because I don't really see why you would do that when you could just win. Um,
I would just take Reed Duke's deck and swap the combo out for one that works and explore it. Whatever.
yeah. Or just pray that they give us another Explorer anthology that gives us the combo pieces for the real deck. But
Yeah.
sorry, not real deck. That's Brood for the
And by
Pioneer deck.
pray, you mean never do.
Oh, it's because then we have to play against it.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if I want a blue-red combo deck dominating the format.
I want Explorer to be as close to Pioneer so that if I want to play paper, I can practice. But which I do want to play paper so I can practice, or just
That's fair.
not have as much. I want everything to be kind of more. Uh, I want to pare down the formats and make it so more people can talk about the same things as far as um, card evaluation, because it gets really confusing when you're like, wow, this card sucks, and you mean in standard, and someone says, wow, this card's amazing in commander, and it takes you 17 tweets to realize you're talking about different formats. You're like, oh, why
Right.
why is this happening? Anyway, um,
Um, yeah, but that's basically what I've been seeing, those decks.
yeah,
I did run into one deck that felt worth mentioning because I loved it, and that was it was Sultai Dredge is the best way to describe it.
okay,
But it basically was all about self mill, and then it ran Narcomoebas, it ran prized amalgams. It was like, you know, that kind of game plan. And it had some really cool things going on. I really loved the deck. I will say it did its thing in both games, and I won both games. So
mm,
that's always like, if you're a newer player or, just haven't thought about things this way before, one thing to always look out for is if a deck does its thing and loses, that's like an alarm bell. Um, that should make you think maybe this thing is not good enough. It can be cool, and if you're playing it for that reason, that's great. But yeah, this deck was milling like crazy, was returning prized amalgams, it hit the Narcomoebas, like it did its thing, and I just still won. So then I was kind of like, I love what you're doing, but it just doesn't seem good enough.
yeah, Narcomoeba sucks. That
You just
card's
have a bunch of like blind
one
men and
ones.
three threes. Like
Yeah,
it's not that hard for me to beat it, and you don't have the finisher. Like the modern version has I'll never remember the name of it, but you can basically burn their face out from your graveyard. And that is the kind of thing you need in this deck.
yeah.
It's
You
resilient three threes against like decks that play graveyard hate anyways, just incidentally is probably not
no, it's not good. Um,
effective enough. And you're
yeah,
just gonna
there's
like attack your prized amalgams into shield trip. Like
yeah, exactly, and it's just like not. You need you need the thing where every time you mill yourself, your opponent is checking your graveyard to make sure you didn't get the card that you needed. And those are not that type of card. You need those are like pieces you would have in the deck to help you chump while you're waiting to get the card that wins the game.
right.
Um,
And I massacred them with Go Blank in one of the games, so that was fun.
yuck. Uh,
But yeah, there's some really strong graveyard hate in the format too. So
mhm.
if you're going to be a deck that's all in on the graveyard, you better make sure that your deck really wins when it like you have to take game one for free kind of thing
Yeah.
because the sideboard hate that's available and not just available but like prevalent.
Mhm.
Everybody plays with tons of graveyard hate. Um, Most common one is probably the again the vehicle, but
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways, wanted to shout
Unlicensors.
that out as a cool deck, but not one that I think is well, let's say well positioned.
Mhm. Yeah, I think
All
that's really
right.
interesting because playing a graveyard strategy that is less viable than Grease Fang seems strange when you have because Grease Fang is forcing everyone to bring graveyard hate. That playing lesser versions of that make it uh you know really easy to pull
Right.
apart.
You're
Uh
getting incidentally hate about, which
yeah,
is never where you never want to be in that spot.
yeah. Where people didn't prepare for your deck, but they have tools anyway because you just happen to be in someone's shadow, basically.
Right,
Um,
because that eliminates the advantage you get from playing rogue deck, which is generally that your opponents don't know what to do or don't have the
mhm,
appropriate sideboard tech.
and don't know what you're doing. Um, Now, instead of being in someone's shadow and playing a graveyard deck where you're milling yourself, what if we
I
played
know where this is going.
a deck that in fact helped enhance their strategy by milling them, and our deck needed them to have cards in their graveyard? How about that? What does that sound good?
I love it.
Perfect. Um, so Jeff and I love Demir Rogues, and
Yes,
um,
as do we all.
yes, we all should. Now, so the Arena Rakers are very pro rogues. We're pro milling to a point. You could call it like corrupted mill,
Yeah,
where we don't want to, we don't necessarily always mill you to death. Um, but this is a archetype that we loved in Standard, and we've continued to love and try to push for in Explorer. And now we're hoping that it may be able to have a resurgence because we got a new rogue that came into our midst recently.
yes.
Um,
Yuta Takahashi.
Yuta
That's
Takahashi.
that's the name of the card, right?
Yeah, it says it's Yuta Takahashi on the card. It definitely does.
Okay. Fairy Mastermind is
Hmm.
the actual name. Huge for the deck because it's a 2 mana flash threat to go alongside your other 2 mana flash threat and all of your instant speed interaction. I was going to say I have a list that I'm working on for rogues. I've played it a bit, and I've actually been running into rogues. So we're not the only ones who think this. I've seen it a few times actually on the ladder. Um, so I think other people might also suspect that Utah is enough to push the deck into a new level.
Hmm. Yeah, because I been waiting for a while. I know that playing MTG has a rogues deck list for Pioneer and had some articles and was pushing that for a while. However, their deck list is nowhere near the type of thing that we would be wanting to play.
Yeah,
Um, Much more like tribal based is instead of uh,
yeah,
like tempo
yeah.
based.
And I that's kind of what I've been seeing people play too. I think some streamer must have made some deck list that's going around because the deck people are playing is like so sorcery speed. It's
Yeah,
like all in on like a bunch of Kaitos and a bunch of the Nighthawk, Vampire Nighthawk
yeah,
rogue, which I think is sideboard. You
yes.
put that in your
If
sideboard for
anything,
aggro.
yeah.
Um, like, and they're not playing Brazen Borrowers and stuff, or at least I've
Hmm.
never seen to play against Brazen Borrower. And like the whole point of Fairy Mastermind is that the deck gets more instant speed because it previously only had the 2 flash creatures, 3 if you count the Brazen Borrower. And now
Hmm.
it's up to 4. And 4 flash creatures is enough to just that's all your creatures.
Yeah.
So my list is very much instant speed. And it's not playing. I'm not playing as much sorcery stuff. I am testing out Jace at the moment.
Hmm.
And in the few games I've played, Jace has been awesome.
I bet. I fucking bet. That's awesome.
Uh, it's exactly what you said, where
Hmm.
sometimes you drop Jace and you further your game plan and draw a card on an empty board kind of thing. Sometimes you drop Jace and you activate the 8 cards immediately by just milling them for that money. And sometimes you drop Jace and just drop your cards. And so I've been able to cut down on the number into the stories you actually need because
Okay.
Jace is like also a card advantage engine. I
Yeah.
still don't feel right playing 0 into the stories. So
Yeah. Are
I
you
have
playing
I think I
two or
have two.
three? Two?
I think I have 2 in there.
Two feels good, I think. And I
Yeah.
like, so we're talking about Jace, we're talking about the completed one. Um
Jace Perfected Mind.
yeah, Perfected Mind. Um so That's really exciting, and I'm happy. I haven't played a ton of this deck, and I don't have a new list because I tend to parasite and suck out any of Jeff's lists and then just play those. If you haven't listened to the show ever, that's what always happens. Um, so I've just been waiting for you. Honestly, that's all. But I have been playing an old list, and even an old list has been great. So very excited to find the upgraded versions. The obviously the main question is: are we still playing uh, Merfolk Windrobber?
So in my version, I have cut them.
Okay.
I'm not convinced that that's correct. Currently, I run two Agadeem's Awakenings,
Mm-hmm.
and the Wind Robber went a long way with that card because it's
Yeah.
happened so often that I only have two drops in my graveyard, and it really takes like paying 5 mana to reanimate a 2 drop kind of sucks. So, and I only have Brazen Moor was my only 3 drop. I only run 2 copies, so it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty unlikely that I'll get that. So the Wind Robbers might still be a necessary evil. One thing I'm considering with the Jace is to test out the Ruin Crab version again, because
Mm-hmm.
with Ruin Crab and Fabled Passages, Jace would be like a legitimate
Ancestral
that would
Recall.
be enough that you
Yeah.
could legitimately expect to um,
Mail.
either mill them out or, like you're saying, drop Jace and draw 3. Like
Mm-hmm.
that would be a lot more common if you had the crab. So I'm wondering if like there's a version where your only sorcery speed stuff is Jace, Crab, and Thoughtseize.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is like interaction and flash threats. I think that could actually be pretty good. So that was the next iteration I was going to try, but my current one cut them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I thought you were going to ask me, to which the answer is obviously yes. I thought you were going to ask me if we were still playing everybody's favorite rogue werewolf, um, which of course, I am still playing. So
So
you're gonna take my
that
list and cut the 2 copies that I
no,
have. But
no. I don't. I To be fair, like I don't love that card. So this is what's the card actually called? Like Seafarer or something.
um, God, it's suspicious stowaway, and
Oh,
then it
right. And then
turns
it flips
into
it to
seafaring
seafaring.
werewolf or something.
That's what it's called. Yeah. I
Yeah.
keep seeing the other side. No, I do like this card, but it does get so much well, it's sorcery speed, which like you were saying,
That
cutting
does suck.
down and sorcery speed stuff, especially sorcery speed stuff that I don't want them to kill, and they do every time.
Yeah,
Um, so
I
I
just love that card. But in the version where I'm playing Ruin Crabs and like moving to that, this will be the card I cut for that.
mhm.
I have a weakness. I understand. It probably shouldn't be in the deck, but I couldn't bring myself to remove every copy.
See, and I was thinking that like Fairy Mastermind was the new version. I was like, Fairy Mastermind
Yeah,
doesn't draw you cards every turn that you attack with it. But to be fair, a lot of the time, what Suspicious Stowaway does is just adds day and night to the game and then is gone. And then maybe later your second copy comes down and is a werewolf already because it's night and it has been night.
yeah.
Which then proceeds them to immediately kill it uh, because we don't play creatures every turn. So I just think Fairy Mastermind is probably better and will draw you cards in funner, sneakier ways.
And to
Uh,
clarify, I'm playing 4 Fairy Masterminds. I am
okay,
maxed out. So
good,
it's
good, good,
four
good.
masterminds, four Soaring Thought
Thought
Thieves,
Thieves
and
and four Thieves
two,
Guilds.
uh, yeah, 4 Thieves Guild.
Hmm.
And then I'm playing 2 Suspicious Stowaway and 2 Brazen Dweller.
Hmm.
The Suspicious Stowaways have been pretty bad though, because with the Jaces and stuff, like you actually don't really need additional card advantage sources. You kind of have
Yeah.
that part of your game figured out.
Hmm.
So
I
I
like
should probably
this.
cut them.
Yeah, cut them. I like the Ruin Crab idea, and
Yeah,
rem-
I'm excited to try that out.
yeah, and also remembering that like Merfolk Windrobber one of the reasons it was good in the deck is because it was most of the time it was played with Lurus as the companion, and so then you could
Yeah,
loop them.
that's true.
And if you're playing Jace and things like that, you can't play Lurus, or you can't play Lurus anyway in Explorer, can you?
You can't. No, it's
No,
banned.
it's banned. So then that
Yeah,
is like a huge reason why like we don't want to play Windrobber because
yeah.
it
That's a
just
good call out.
I'm sure that that was a big reason why we would use it, because drawing a card every turn is great. But again, if Jace or these other cards are able to do that for us, then we don't have to. And as many flash threats as possible sounds amazing because
Yeah, I like the idea where your threats are literally Brazen Borrower,
mhm,
Soaring Thought Thief, Fairy Mastermind, and Deep Skilled Enforcer. Just
yeah,
four solid flash threats, probably like four of each of them, and just call it there. You don't need more rogues than that.
nope, that's it. You don't need any reanimator. You don't need any of the goofy shenanigans. No
Yeah,
ninjutsu, fake ninjutsu stuff.
yeah.
Like
No Zera Sand,
no,
please. You
no,
don't have to play that.
no. Unless there's any reason to like sideboard it, but right now there
Maybe,
isn't.
yeah, maybe against like mono green or something, because you're gonna hit something pretty solid. But
Yeah, either that
even then,
or Greased Fang, and you steal their their.
okay, maybe against like the transmogrify decks, you mill an Atraxa. You're like, haha, my Atraxa.
Yeah, one of their Atraxas, which is a card they shouldn't even be playing anyway.
Yeah,
For sure.
like you're gonna
Uh,
beat them no matter what because you have a ton of instant speed interaction and they have a
mhm.
combo that is
And
super
counter spells. Yeah,
instant.
like it's really bad against counter spells. Um,
Atraxa also, by the way, if they try to hard cast it, garbage against Make Disappear.
yeah, like
It
no,
does nothing.
fuck you,
Make
disdainful strike.
Disappear, solid addition to the deck, by the way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm excited to try. I've had like decent success with it. It felt like good old rogues. But it's felt like my list isn't quite correct because I have some just like a lot of awkward hands.
Hmm.
Um, but for the most part, it's been fun and it's felt like the good old days, you know.
Nice, nice. I like adding more mill components to continue to keep the balance of how you're gonna die.
Yeah,
Um,
that was my favorite thing about the standard deck.
mhm.
And up till now in the Explorer version, it hasn't really been viable. The Explorer version is always just I'm milling you to enable my cards, but I'm going to kill you with damage. Um, whereas way back in the day, for those who didn't play the standard version, it was pretty close to 50-50 whether you would
Oh,
kill them by milling them out or with damage.
and all you have to do is figure out a turn before your opponent, and then you win.
Right, which one was the
Hmm.
way the game was going to go. It really rewarded that skill, and that was super fun.
Yeah. And yeah, ugh, so good. I know that standard was like kind of fucked up with a bunch of adventures and a bunch of Omnath and all that stuff,
Yeah,
but that deck was like
there
favorite
was a
standard deck of all
time,
time. Like,
same.
yeah.
There was a time after a sufficient level of bannings had occurred, or a sufficient number of bannings, where that was a really fun standard format where there was this trio of rogues, Gruul adventures, and like Giorion piles that were kind of good against each other in like a cyclic
Like
thing.
rock, paper, scissors kind of thing.
Yeah, and none of them were too overpowered. So at any weekend, you could bring any one of them and do well. But it also rewarded you to guess where the metagame was going to be and bring the right one. And that was kind of cool.
Hmm.
But yeah, for a while there was just a ton of busted crap that a lot of stuff had to get banned. Like the joke is, Bone Crusher Giant was the best card in its standard after, but it was like the 10th best card in
In
Eldraine.
Eldraine. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, reliving the glory days. And that's what
Mhm.
Explorer can do for you. If you're a Rogues
Yes.
player, And do you want to jump on this train? Um, Come help us build this deck. We don't obviously have it figured out exactly. And when I say we, I really mean Jeff, because Jeff builds things and I play them. So come to our Discord, post your rogues list, and as long as it doesn't have Zerasan, we will look at it. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. I also want to see the Zerasan ones too.
I will look
Um,
at it no matter what. Actually, for me, it's not even Xerath Sand. If it has 4 Nighthawk scavengers in the main deck, that's when
yes,
I am. That's when
like
I'm
a
raised.
little dubious.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's one, I'm like, okay, I can hear you out. But if that's your
Also,
main,
like ton of rogues lists are playing Shieldred now, and I'm like, I feel like this has to be wrong. But I understand the dream of like Shieldred plus into the story. I guess you gain 8 life, but
yeah,
come on, a 4 mana sorcery in rogues? Are you guys crazy?
yeah, that's just gonna. You know what that does? Like a 4 mana sorcery in rogues is like, here is my threat, and I give you a whole turn where like I'm not gonna counter anything. Basically, that's what it like opens up.
Exactly. Right? Like normally I want to be passing the turn and I could play a creature, I could bounce something, or I could counter something. All of those are
Or
available.
destroy something. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
Or exile something from your graveyard. Like all those things are
Oh yeah.
possible.
You know my deck plays Cling to
hmm
Dust main, so
So yeah, of course. So like
yeah.
the point of it is that like your opponent doesn't know what you have, and so then you can almost trick like after you thought seize them, you can trick them into not playing spells because they're like, I don't know, like I can't go for this right now because they could have any number of counter spells in their hand.
Right.
So
Exactly. Like imagine you're playing Transmogrify. Your opponent's
mm,
blue black, 5 cards in hand, 4 mana, passes the turn. Like you can't Transmogrify.
no,
No way. No way you can.
yeah,
Like the odds that they can't beat that are slim to none. And sometimes you're the rogues player with 5 lands in hand. You're like, pass.
yeah. And you're just like, what are you
Or
gonna do?
sandbagging your stupid children. But yeah, stop playing such expensive sorcery speed mediocre cards in the rogues deck. That's not what this deck is. It's not just worse red black.
Yeah,
That's not what
don't do
rogues
that.
is. Um, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Rogue strength is that all the cards are cheap. Um,
Yeah.
and you can play a bunch of different stuff. Like somebody puts a spell on the stack, and you get to cycle one of your Amonkhet lands to look for a counter spell, or like go through a bunch of stuff to decide what's going to happen. Um, because I don't know, being able to like like I don't know. Try to early on bait out some of their removal so that their hand is empty, or like thought seize them just so they have a card in their graveyard so you can use Drown in a Lock. Like that's the kind of stuff that's
Classic.
really exciting, you know?
Yeah.
That's where you're like, okay, this thought seize isn't actually to get rid of the specific card I'm looking for. Like we were talking about earlier, getting rid of their fable.
Mhm.
It's like I'm actually trying to just make sure you get as many cards in your graveyard as possible. And when you use your fable to dump 2 cards in your graveyard, that's going to be great for me. So
Yeah. Please do that.
please do that. Those are the kind of things that's interesting. The only thing I really want to talk about is that because Grease Fang is so huge in this meta, like, are we worried about like helping, like feeding Grease Fang and making the combo go so fast? Like,
Yeah,
is
the
that?
matchup's super interesting because both players want to mill like the Greasefang player, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
both players are interested in the Greasefang player having a large graveyard.
Yeah.
I always love the mill versus self mill matchup. I personally have found that with like Fatal Push, with Cling to Dust, with any number of instant speed interaction with counter spells, the Greasefang matchup's not that bad. Even though you do turbo them out, you just have to be aware that you're doing that and basically never tap out. And this is another reason that I don't like Nighthawk Scavenger. I don't like Shieldred. Because if I play those, my opponent's going to hit me with Parhelion too. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not better off. I'm not,
No,
oh, well, you hit me with Parhelion too, but I have a Shieldred. Like, no, yeah, I lose.
you're dead. Yeah.
So you basically, there are enough decks in the format that you never want to tap out against. Mono green is also something you're barely ever interested in tapping out against. So I just don't think you can afford to play that. And like, I'll reiterate the point I made earlier. If you're playing Shieldred, you're playing Nighthawk Scavenger, you're playing rogues essentially like a worse red-black mid-range. You're kind of playing like blue-black mid-range, and you're going to be worse at that than the red-black deck. So you need a reason to be playing what you're playing. And that reason is ultimate flexibility. All your cards are cheap. They're all instant speed. You get the kind of cheater magic where you get to wait to see what your opponent does before you decide what you're going to do.
Hmm.
That's a huge advantage.
Yeah. And that's what makes the deck really fun. It also is one of the reasons that, like, probably in the Greasefang matchup, if we end up playing a list that's like main decking crabs, rune crab, you would probably side them out because milling your opponent at instant speed is going to be a lot better at the end of their turn than doing it on your turn and being like, oh fuck, I just gave them their combo piece for their turn, just by playing lands, being able to mill them just with uh, your Thieves Guild Enforcers on end step, and using those, being able to, because they want to mill their pieces at instant speed on your turn before their turn, and you want to use the times when you need to mill them on their turn so that you have a whole turn to deal with it. So that's this interesting interaction where you both are trying to mill on the end step of your opponent's turn, the same deck, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Although I'd be curious, I've never actually played the matchup. I'd be curious how good Jace is. Like, is he just like an ancestral recall kind
Yeah,
of thing?
that's true, because like they'll do it themselves. Like it makes it so much easier to just draw a ton of cards. So then
And in
having
a certain sense, he neutralizes Greasefang a bit because his plus can make Greasefang unable to crew anything.
that is actually really interesting. I didn't think
Now
about
they
that
have to have the
plus.
Greasefang already in play, right? But like
That's
if they've
true.
hit you with it or they have a Greasefang but nothing in the yard yet, you
Hmm.
can insulate yourself against it a little bit by plussing them the Greasefang, and then they can return something that probably can't crew it.
Crew it on that turn. It's probably the situation where like they had gone for the combo and you were able to cling to dust or
Right. But the
just
Greasefang's still there.
or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
green things, something like that, where like it's later in the game, and that's a kind of situation you get to use. The Greasefang player, for the most part, should not play their they shouldn't Greasefang should not be on the battlefield if they can't do the combo that turn. Um, so you probably had to do something to stop them, and then the next turn you drop Jace, you make it so that Greasefang can't crew it, and so that they feasibly shouldn't try to mill one, because nothing will happen unless they're trying to bring back like Chariot or something, because then they still get the cats. But
Chariot would be okay. Yeah.
yeah, um, but yeah, really interesting. And I think that was for a long time a reason why people pushed away against that deck, and myself included, pushed away from Rogues, thinking that, oh, Grease Fang is too strong, or that matchup's too hard. But I like the perspective of it's really interesting, and because I now have the final flash threat, I feel strength that
Yeah.
this can work out. So
Um, yeah. Plus
yeah,
Yuta's card is quite good. So
it is good.
yeah, I'm excited for the deck. I think now I'm just excited to go play the Bone Crab version because that was always my favorite
Ah, I love the
version.
rune. Well, you love the rune crab version because people concede on turn one.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm in like gold ranks.
It could still happen.
That might cruise me up to diamond or something.
Hmm.
We get like trauma from the old days of the island ruin crab. Like,
Yeah.
no,
No.
no, concede.
Yeah, concede immediately. Like Good game, good game, good game concede.
Yeah,
And you're like, wow,
yeah,
okay,
classic. You used to get that
classic.
so much.
Um,
Um, but there is one other deck. So actually, while I was playing Rogues and playing with Jace, I got super excited and inspired to build something else. And that's what I played the most of, actually.
okay.
And that is Sultai Delirium. So I am playing your Wayfinder.
Sure.
Uh, and oh geez, what's the name of the card? The 2-drop Delirium thing. Um, it's like a 2/2. If you have Delirium, it's a 4/4. Whenever it hits the opponent, you surveil 3, and it has trample. Grim something. Grim Flare.
Oh, Grim
Um,
Flayer. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm playing Emrakul. I'm playing Ishkana.
Mm-hmm.
We got Jace's in there because Jace is awesome in the deck. We have Invasion of Amonkhet.
Okay.
Yeah, get a battle in there for
Mm-hmm.
Delirium, and also we're playing a bunch of toolbox big creatures.
That's
So
true. Okay. All right.
it can like reanimate. Uh, Currently, I have just a few things I'm trying. Like I have a Titan of Industry in there. I have geez, what's the prototype? The snake prototype, but it's
Oh, the the
Menace
Grixis one.
Lifelink.
Oh, that
Menace
thing.
Lifelink Snake was prototype because it's an artifact and
Yeah,
I can
yeah, yeah.
actually cast it.
Ward, you pay you life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I have a Ravenous Chupacabra in there. People haven't played with that card in a while,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
Wow.
really good with tutor effects. So
Mm-hmm.
nice thing to have in there. Obviously Ishkana, and you basically just get to play all your favorite creatures, and so that's super fun.
That's
And
cool.
then the base around that's like you get your thought seas, you got your obviously traverse the open world is what kind of lets the deck actually be a deck. And you could play different planeswalkers. You could play the enchantments I'm running are the teachings of the Kirin at the moment because it's like a 2-drop that mills and is an
Yeah.
enchantment. Um, the deck is super fun. My initial iteration did a lot of losing. The first deck that I built was completely different. It lost a lot. Um, but I've like slowly been swapping cards in and out and iterating, and now I'm starting to like win the mid range matchups against red black and like starting to. I had a game earlier today actually where my opponent had post board. They had unlicensed Hearse on turn 2, and I had Delirium every turn of the game for after. It just didn't matter. Like
Wow.
that, it wasn't enough. 2 cards a turn of your choosing wasn't enough to keep me off Delirium, and I basically smoked them because they essentially wasted a card because they put a card in order to keep me off Delirium, and it didn't do that. Jace just mills in
Mm-hmm.
and like Satyr Wayfinders and stuff. So I was always able to like start my turn without Delirium because they used the hearse, and by the time I'm attacking or doing anything relevant, I had Delirium. Yeah, I this is like right up my alley. It brings me back to the types of decks I used to play a long time ago.
Yeah.
You do get hit with graveyard hate, but you're just legitimately a mid-range deck, so you're not all in on graveyard. And like you only need delirium, when you're casting Ishkana. It doesn't have to always be there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did get to, oh yeah, that was the other in that same match by unlicensed tourist. I won the first game because I Emra cooled and I took my opponent's turn and I used their Liliana -2 targeting themselves to sacrifice their Kiki Jiki, and then they conceded.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, that you should concede to that. Yep.
That's that's gross.
I was like, please tell me Liliana says target player. Oh, it does. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is what we're doing.
Oh my god. That's so gross.
But yeah, it's something I'm working on and iterating on it. It's probably still like kind of mid tier, but it's super fun. And if you like kind of janky mid range decks like I do, this has just been like a kid in a candy store because there's so many things to try. Like you could put any number of ridiculous creatures in there because you only need one copy. I didn't mention it, but obviously Tireless Tracker is in my deck.
Sure, sure,
Um,
sure, 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 sure.
so it's so fun to like you have all these random targets. Whatever you milled is what could happen for your invasion of Amonkhet. You might have to go get something with traverse the Oven Wall. So you have to have a bunch of different options at varying points in the curve that do different things in different, matchups. Um, but yeah, it's been a hoot.
Nice. That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. You'll have to post that in the Discord because I would absolutely want to steal it and play that.
For
As I'm
sure.
sure everyone listening wants to as well, because having a new mid-range deck, like I feel like a lot of people are getting soured, myself included, on mid-range just because of standard and the the kind of just the red black menace that we've been dealing with. So having
Mhm.
another like completely different mid-range deck sounds like just a breath of fresh air of like just new cards that are different and fun and not the same shit that we've been looking at over and over again.
Oh yeah, most of the cards like you will have not played before in this
Hmm.
deck. There's Thoughtseize,
Hmm.
there's like Fatal Push, that kind of
Sure.
stuff. Everything else
Epic.
is probably totally new, right? Like you don't play a lot of Grim Flare, Satyr Wayfinder. You don't play a lot of Invasion of Amonkhet, Jace, Perfected Mind, Emrakul, Ravenous Chupacabra. Like all this stuff is just cards that I was like, as soon as I saw them, I get excited. I gotta try that. I gotta try. I forgot about this card. Uh, so I would love to post it, and then I'd love for people to, because there's probably some awesome creature that I'm just forgetting even
Yeah.
exists, right? And that would be amazing. So um, apparently, Thragtusk, not legal or something, or not on Arena. I don't know, but I could have sworn it was, and then I searched
No,
Thragtusk, and nothing came up.
I thought Thragtusk was added through like a one of the what are they called? Jumpstart things.
I thought so too, but then when I searched it, it didn't show up. Maybe I
Did you
did something wrong.
turn on like the not collected filter?
I thought so. I also was pretty sure I had Thragtusk, but I
Well,
don't know.
maybe it's worth another look. I remember
Yeah,
that being a big deal at some point, but obviously there's been a lot of things that have been big deals at different points that ended up not mattering at all. So, um, but as we do this, honestly, I'm going to go look up on Scryfall because that's the best source for finding this information out. Um, but that's great. I'm also excited for like, I mean, our rogues discussion obviously gives me like just a ton of juice for rogues and makes me super excited for that. Um, and as we're looking at this, Thragtusk is not legal in Pioneer or Explorer, so that would make sense that it's on
hmm,
Arena, but it's not legal because it's legal in Historic,
interesting.
but it's not legal in Explorer or Pioneer. Is it like banned or something? No, no, no. Was it just not part of the card pool? When is it'll go? It was printed in 2013, and then Jumpstart and things after that. So it's not even in Pioneer. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's why. For whatever reason, it felt like it was in like the Theros era, but that
Yeah,
doesn't
I
sound
was so
right.
sure that it was that card I could put in my deck, and then I searched
Nope,
it, just nothing came up.
nope, not Pioneer legal. Yep, it's it was added to Arena through Jumpstart, but it was originally printed in Magic 13, which is not legal in Pioneer, which means it's not legal in Explorer.
Gotcha.
There you have it, folks.
Anyways, yeah, there's definitely some like random creatures over the past 10 years or 15 years
Yeah,
or whatever that I am forgetting and should be in the deck. I have recency bias. A lot of the creatures are stuff I remember being dope from recent standard
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
totally. Recent standard like Groom Flayer and stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. Just the other day,
Hmm.
a cool Flairish kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are all like
classic
very
deck.
recent. Um, awesome,
Although I
awesome.
was super bummed when I saw that. Remembered that Jace Friends Prodigy is not yet on the Arena.
That'll be good.
That
That'll be
card would
really
have
good.
gone in my deck.
Yeah. So we have a few cards we want for the anthology. Please, Wizards, bring us another one and get us closer
Yeah.
to Pioneer so we don't get confused anymore.
Mhm.
Awesome. Anyway, that's sick. I'm so stoked for everything that's going on with basically all the formats right now. Sorry, that's a lie. Besides draft, I'm still not happy about that. But um, going into constructed is always fun because it tends to be kind of something that I'm less excited for, and it almost seems like a last resort. But now it's feeling really, really invigorating. So that's always good. Just Jeff. Oh God, Kraken is like creeping on me. I can feel it on my shoulder.
I think it's the Little Wizard that really did.
Yeah. Well, I have a
Yeah.
little wizard on this shoulder, and I have a giant Kraken on this shoulder. Um, so yeah, I'm leaning it really intensely. Anyway, do you have any last thoughts before we go to last call?
My only last thought is something we've talked about but not sort of explicitly stated. Um, but like when I say the deck I see the most is Rakdos midrange, that's probably 1 in 4, 1 in 5 matches. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot of different decks you play against in this format. Everybody's doing their own thing, and I've played a almost like unprecedented number of brews that were just like not. This is a new player, and they have a pile of jank. Like this is a deck that somebody has constructed and put together that is not tier,
Hmm.
but it does something, and you have to respect it, uh, and that's been super fun. So um, the format was just honestly, I was playing it because we decided to do this episode, and also with the banning coming up to standard, it made sense. Let's take a break from standard, play something else till the ban list comes out. And I've just been having a ton of fun because I get to play a bunch of different decks. I really ripped through some wild cards, but that aside, I've played against a lot of different stuff, and it's just been honestly a breath of fresh air. So if you've never played Explorer before, but you have a semi reasonable collection, I'd say give it a try. Jump in, um, craft the shocklands, and have some fun because it's a great format.
It is good, and yeah, it as it gets closer and closer to paper, it's just going to be better and better. Um, with that, Jeff, let's go to last call. Let's talk about the beers we had this evening and wrap up our little beasts tap takeover. Maybe we can talk about some of our favorites from Little Beasts all together. But with that being said, we rate our beers from a scale of bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. This has nothing to do with which tier you are in currently. It's just a fun way to rate beer. So don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You have to spit them out. You have to just throw them up because they can no longer be in your body.
Yeah, silver beers are just boring. Macro brews are an example.
Yeah, gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink them again.
Platinum, solid. Yeah, you'll drink this again.
Yeah. Diamond beers are exceptional. You like these a lot. You'll recommend these to your friends.
And mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the rogues of the beer world.
Mm,
Um, just chef's kiss.
chef's kiss. Makes me just want to play rogues right now. Jeff, do you have
Throw
the?
some Jace in there. That's my tip.
All right, throw some Jays, some Fairy Mastermind. You're good to go. Um,
Yeah,
do you know which beer you're gonna pick for this evening?
I do.
All right, I have it in my hand, and here we go. Three, two, one. Little
Kraken.
Wizard. Knew it. Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. Let's talk about Kraken. Um,
Sure.
I'll let you start off because you picked this one, obviously.
Okay. Um, I loved this beer.
Hmm.
I thought it tasted like an IPA, which is good. I didn't personally find it too alcohol-y. Like it didn't burn, it wasn't like I was tasting malt liquor or something. But on the other hand, it also wasn't juice. I kind of don't like that either because it's just kind of dangerous. It tastes like juice and it's 11%, 10%. Um, it's a recipe for disaster. So I like my big beers to taste big, but not taste like they're just alcohol, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
And I thought, like sometimes it's a gimmick, right? Oh, it's a triple IPA. It's alcoholic. It'll get you hammered. And it's like, okay, but does it taste good? Like, it's an expensive beer. Does it taste good? And this one tastes great. This tastes like a really good IPA. I thought they used the extra alcohol to their advantage a little bit, let them get away with some bigger flavors in there. And I was just reading the ingredients because I was like sure of it while I was drinking, but they use oat in their grain bill, which
Hmm.
I'm always a fan of, and I think pretty much every beer should do it. It just kind of gives it a little more like, secondary character. It's also good for like head retention and stuff, but for me, it gives it like just a little bit of extra depth in the
Yeah.
body because instead of just all being the same thing, you're getting a few different things, and it works especially well in huge beers. I find because maybe in like a 5% German lager or something. You want that purity. You want it to all be the same, like crystal clear. But something big like this, having that depth in the body really helps. So uh, I have nothing bad to say about this. I loved it.
Yeah. I liked it as well. Um, I was a bit surprised at how little alcohol I'd actually taste from it, as I was
Mhm.
expecting something that was going to knock me on my ass, as the name and the pictures kind of suggests. But then thinking more about it, and as you were describing it, it does creep up on you a little bit more, like a Kraken would, where you don't know you're done for until it's already happened, which
Yeah,
I think happened because like it
yeah,
really got there. And with that being said, and everything you were talking about with the alcohol and how it feels, um, it's very smooth. Like you, not in the sense that it's like you were saying, doesn't taste like it's juice or something like that, but it's just like the smoothest triple IPA I think I've ever had. Where other ones feel like you're going for it. I think I had one sip that was like, okay, we're here, but the rest of it was just like going down. Like I drank it
yeah.
what felt like very fast. So
That was the
I,
first thing I noticed was like it doesn't taste like super alcoholic.
mhm, which does feel a little scary, but really good. Probably one of my favorite triple IPAs,
Mhm.
just because a lot of them just kind of like we talk about wanting to have beers. Oh shit, I just dropped it. Anyway, we talk about beers that we want us to punch us in the face or like kick us. And that's what I was expecting from this one. And it didn't, but in a really good way, in a new way I wasn't expecting that I would like. So
Yeah.
I did really like this beer. And yeah, this is great. I'm definitely gonna talk about this one. So I don't know, what's your rating for this?
Yeah, so I was thinking like diamond for this, and
Hmm.
and then I was like, is it mythic? I don't know, because it's so hard to actually push something into that boundary. But then I was reflecting on Little Beasts the past 4 weeks, and I felt like they've kind of gone the raw end of the deal, where I kept being like, oh, it's a really well made beer. Love the brewery, platinum.
Yeah.
It's like it's not reflective of how much I actually enjoyed the experience. So I decided, just gonna give them a mythic on this one.
Hey.
I'm gonna add this to my mythic list. I really, really enjoyed it. I will actually like seek this out again and be like, yo, if you want to try really good. big IPA and you're not a fan of the ones that like punch you in the mouth, I have the perfect one. This is that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, way to go, Little Beasts.
Hey,
Loved it.
congrats, Little Beast. You got there. You got to the finish line.
Yeah.
That's great. Um, as I am looking at the beers, I'm not going to rate Kraken a mythic, though I think your point is super valid. And I also agree that I've been kind of giving them a little bit of the short end of the stick. Um, but I will definitely recommend this again. It's a high diamond for sure.
Mhm.
And this beer is great. It's it's awesome. And it's definitely one I'm going to remember for a long time. Um, but I will go to a beer I'm gonna would for sure remember because Little Wizard is awesome. I love Little Wizard. Look at this little guy. He's so cute. Um, anything weird always piques my interest, and Margarita Goza. It actually, it it. I think describing it and having our little like salt and vinegar chip pickle-y discussion fit
Yeah.
really nicely with this beer,
Hmm.
and it was just a perfect level to me of what I wanted this to be. It's not super salty, it's not super limey, and it's not super sour or like vinegary. It just like fits a nice plane of like just delicious with all those pieces in it, and it's like just kind of weird and complex. And I'm also going to give this a diamond. I'm not going to jump into the mythic range, but this is one that like if someone is tired of like pucker face sours and want something that's in a similar vein, this is absolutely where we're going, because I think this is what more of those beers should taste like, and be, because
Yeah, I
this
agree
is
with
nice.
literally everything you said. After all that discussion, I took a
Hmm.
sip and I'm like, it is not that salty,
Hmm.
and that's the thing that throws me off almost every Gozas. It's like, why is my beer so salty? Like,
Hmm.
it's weird, man. This one definitely has some salt in there, but it's not, definitely wasn't super salty. It wasn't very, like, it's acidic again, but it wasn't
Hmm.
overpoweringly
Yeah.
acidic. It was really tasty. I'm not like a big margarita fan. I can't remember the last time I had a margarita, so I can't comment on how much it resembles a margarita, um, if they're going for that kind of thing. But yeah, this was sort of a clear diamond for me.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Almost tempted to like also give it mythic just as the only
Wow.
Goza I've ever liked.
Hmm.
Because I've tried many Gozas and they're all bad. And so I do not like the style, but I did really enjoy this. But I'll leave it at diamond because um, this is something, it fits perfectly. This is something I'd recommend to a bunch of people, but it's not my personal like favorite
Yeah,
because just because of the style more
for
than anything.
sure. Because like if I was not just because Kraken's 10%, but if I was going to drink another of these right now, I'd probably go for Little Wizard. Um, I also wonder if Little Wizard tastes different if you haven't had Kraken right before it. So
Yeah,
that's
we
one
should do it.
thing.
We should get these again and do it in the opposite order.
Yeah, because I wonder if Little Wizard's a bit more sharp and intense if you haven't dulled a lot of
Yeah,
your
if you're
stuff
not hammered.
drunk. Yeah. Uh, anyway, overall, Little Beasts has been a fantastic brewery. Um, like,
Yeah,
it's so cool that we found them from just a random beer shop and had them on the show, and like that's how we were introduced to them, which just continues to solidify how exciting it's been to uh, just discover the beer world weekly through this podcast and with you. It's awesome, and this
yeah, I
is a
liked
testament to that.
everything about Little Beasts. They make the classics well, and they're also willing to explore like funky styles, like
Hmm.
non-traditional things. I like their can design, like their labels. I just like it feels like if I were running my own brewery, it would make a lot of the same decisions that Little Beasts has made. So
Yeah. So great stuff. And yeah, now I feel kind of lost as we're looking for new beers for next week
I
and
know.
the weeks after that and for our next tap takeover. So as we go into closing time, if you'd like to reach out to us and tell us which brewery we should do a tap takeover next, you can find us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram to tell us which breweries are your favorite and you'd like us to rate.
You may also find us on MTG Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast. Seems like our Rogues deck may be playable once again.
Yeah, so we'll have to fire that back up on that account. If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg, that is ZeulBerg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Our Discord channel. Yeah, I go by Regular Jeff on the channel. And once again, you should be able to find that down below in the show notes.
That's right. Hopefully, we'll have some deck lists up for you by the time that you have listened to this episode. And also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there. Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, leave a comment, like a video. All the engagement really helps the channel to grow. And we're looking forward to the future. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that Rogues is not just bad Rakdos midrange.
Good night.
All right, that's fine.